So guys, I'm ready with another lecture, which is going to be on the plasma membrane. Plasma membrane is a structure which is almost similar in plants, animal, fungi, even in bacteria. There'll be little alteration here and there, but otherwise the structure is going to be same. So it is very important to see how exactly the plasma membrane is going to function. Basically, it has few components. In brief, if I say that the two important component, one is a lipid, another is a protein. There'll be some carbohydrate moieties present here and there, maybe in the lipid or maybe in the proteins. This is how the plasma membrane is going to be. Now we have a lot of information after the Singer and Nicholson's model, which we call the fluid and mosaic model. Otherwise, the dynamics of the plasma membrane is very difficult to understand and very difficult to make out the few questions which were raised in the beginning when the plasma membrane was in the process to be discovered. Most of the answer that is given by the fluid and mosaic model, but still many unanswered questions are there. And we see a lot of changes which is happening during the process. A lot of research is being going on in the structure of the plasma membrane. Let's talk about how it all started. It was a Overton in the beginning of the 19th century who started working on this. Before I go into the discoveries part, let me just talk about the brief about the plasma membrane. If you just look at the plasma membrane, there was one model proposed by the Robertson, that is a unit membrane model. What this model says, almost every cell organelle in the eukaryote will be having the same kind of membrane structure. So that is how it is called as unit membrane. Another important thing is that the thickness is around, like as per the Robertson model, it's going to be 75 angstrom, but it will have some thickness level vary from one cell to another. Even the kind of lipid which is present on the plasma membrane and the kind of protein which will vary from the one place to another. Another thing is that the orientation of the protein and the lipid molecule, that is again very important. So there'll be involving few interactions as well. That is mainly the non-covalent interaction. It happens in the biological system, which is a prominent bond that we see in the many of the biological molecule other than the covalent bond. So we'll talk about that in little while. Let's talk about first how exactly the plasma membrane came into the picture. As I told you, all started by the Overton. Robert Hooke was the first to see that was the cell wall, but the membrane part, it was worked out in the beginning by the Charles Overton. He tried to pass around 500 different substances through the plasma membrane, and the basic model that was used in the beginning is the RBC. Why RBC? Because RBC does not have any other cell organelle into it, and dead RBC is plenty to be found out easily in the spleen, and that is because of host cell. So most of the work has been done on the RBCs, and there's no contamination part from any other membrane. So Overton proved that when he tried to pass around 500 different substances, those are lipid soluble, found to be easily moving through the lipid. So he, on that basis, concluded that the plasma membrane is made up of lipid. But still, it was what kind of lipid? Lipid basically is the ester between the alcohol, that basically is a glycerol, and the long chain fatty acid. And then in the year around 1900 to 1920, it was proven that it is the phospholipid. Then the first model, that is came by the Galter and Grandel, they said it is not a single layer, it's going to be lipid bilayer. Then in the 1935, there was a model called a sandwich model, that is a very cropped model, where they said that is a sandwich model, where the protein is going to sandwich the lipid on the from the either side. Then 1950s, the first time the electron microscope was used to understand the structure of the plasma membrane. J.D. Robertson, that I was talking about, he had given the unit membrane model. Then finally it came, because there happened to be many questions which were not answered by these scientists. Finally, in the 1972, Singer and Nicholson, they proposed the fluid mosaic model, which tried to address most of the questions raised during the discovery of the plasma membrane. Let's first see exactly what the Galton and Grandel did, how they come to know that it is not a lipid monolayer, rather it is going to be lipid bilayer. He tried to work out is that, he took the number of the RBCs and he measured the surface area. Then he tried to take out the lipid layer and he used it through the Langmuir curve, and where we can measure the thickness. So what he got was the thickness and the surface area, they were not matching. So it was just double. On that basis, what he said was it is not a single layer, it is going to be the double layer. What is shown over here, you can see this is the structure of the lipid, which is having the two tails. One looks, the kink or the little bend, and the head. So it is amphipathic structure, which has the two polarity. One is going to be polar, another one is going to be non-polar. So tails are going to be non-polar and the head is going to be polar because they contain the charge group. But many a time, like, he was failed to explain the few part, like, those, especially if I go little more detail, what I'll tell you is that, the lipid soluble things can pass through it, but those which were, the polar substances, they find it very difficult to get through. So that question still remain unanswered. And then there come the sandwich model by Danieli and Dawson. What they said, there's a protein two layer which is going to sandwich it around. In between there'll be lipid bilayers, and then the same kind of observation is made by the Robertson, J.D. Robertson, in the 1950s after the discovery of the electron microscope. And he said all the membrane in a cell or the different cell organelle is going to have the similar structure, but still the same question which has not been answered by the earlier model. Then it came the fluid mosaic model, which tried to answer many questions. They adopted a different technique because of freeze fracture technique, where the cryo-electron microscopy is going to be done, where the very less temperature in the minus that is going to be used, where the membrane is going to be kept at the very low temperature, and there the carbon particle is going to be used, and once it is going to be cut, so it is a rapidly freezing specimen which is going to be cut by the special knife. It is going to cut in such a way that the proteins of one side remain on the one side and the other side protein remain on the other. It is not cutting the protein altogether. And then by using the electron microscope, this structure can be read. That was the basic behind the freeze fracture technique. On that basis, the Singer and Nicholson, they came to a point that it is a lipid bilayer, and they've used the two term, the fluid what they have used it for the lipid part, which is mobility into it, and the protein part, it's said to be the mosaic, which is going to be the embedded in the structure. And if you see over here, so fluid part, as I told you, they are going to be lipid, and lipid, basically there'll be two kind of lipid depending upon their consistency at the low and the high temperature. Usually it may have the unsaturated or the saturated fatty acids, which will vary in their property. Like, for example, the saturated fatty acid remains solid at the room temperature, whereas the unsaturated fatty acids or the lipid is going to be liquid at the room temperature. This is how the different organism growing in the different condition, they have that kind of weight. For example, if you see the organism growing at the high temperature will tend to have saturated fatty acid. On the other hand, the organism which are growing at the low temperature, they will always be having lipid which is unsaturated in nature, so that it should not get freeze. Another factor, especially in the animal cell, which the control the fluidity both at the low temperature and the high temperature, is the cholesterol. And Mosaic world, we use it for the protein, and we have the more than 50 proteins can be present on the structure of the plasma membrane. And this is how we can see over here. These are the proteins you can see over here. Proteins, they may have the moiety of the carbohydrate that is going to make the glycoproteins, and if it is present on the lipid part, is going to be glycolipid. And you can see the cholesterol is a long tail cholesterol, you can see, which is present over here. And there's some protein that can be loosely attached. So protein we can keep in the two category. One is a peripheral protein, another one is a integral. Integral will include the transmembrane protein as well, a protein which passes from one side to the other. It spans from the exterior to the interior of the cell, which is called to be transmembrane proteins. And at the bottom you can see the cytoskeleton, which is binding it in order to keep a shape in the animal cell, whereas the shape is going to be maintained by the cell wall in the case of plant cell. Now, another question that is need to be answered is that the whether the lipid is going to be in this form, that means it is going to be in the normal arrangement, or it is going to be spherical arrangement. So after the research, we come to know that the lipid molecule is going to be arranged in this way, because thermodynamically this structure is going to be more feasible, because here the tails, they come into contact with each other, and hence the chances of having the repulsion is very less, so that the energy of the system is going to be lesser. Suppose it is arranged in the other way around, so head is going to hate the tail, because head is going to be polar and tail is going to be non-polar. Little while we'll discuss like why it is so. So this is the arrangement which is preferred because of the thermodynamic feasibility. Now you see some structure. These are the few common type of the lipid which is found in the plasma membrane. You can see over here, these are the tails shown over here in the red color, shown the head region. And basically here the most of the cases except the sphingomyelin, the alcohol is going to be glycerol, which is a 3-carbon compound having the 3 OH group. Out of the 2 OH group is going to react with the fatty acid, and third is going to react with the phosphoric acid. Hence this is the phospholipid, and that phosphate group can be exchanged with the some of the other components. So hence we have the phosphatidyl ethanolamine. You can see this red color suggesting the structure of the ethanolamine. It could be the phosphatidyl serine. If this red color, you can see the phosphate is going to be attached with the on third carbon with the serine group. And then serine is a kind of a amino acid. Phosphatidyl choline, if it is having the quaternary ammonium structure, that is called as choline. And it could be the sphingomyelin. Here you can see the alcohol is going to be different. It's amino alcohol. And some structure we call as sphingosine, which is shown over here. One which is not shown here is the phosphatidyl inositol, which is another kind of lipid which is found in the animal cell. And the another type we call as a cholesterol. You can see here the cholesterol, the phenanthrene ring shown over here, and which is very, very rigid. And we have the tail region. You can see the small head region on the up, and this is the very rigid region. And here is going to be the non-polar hydrocarbon tail. If you look at over here, this is the polar head. The mid part is going to be cholesterol Stephan region, which maintains the fluidity at the high and the low temperature both. At high temperature, they reduce the fluidity because they do not allow the lipid tail to move very freely. At the low temperature, they do not allow these tails to come and close enough to get frozen. So both way, at the low temperature, it is going to maintain the fluidity, and the high temperature, it is going to reduce the fluidity. That is the reason cholesterol is going to be very, very important part. And if you see the lipid component in the different cell organelle at the different places, which is going to vary. So the lipid by weight, it is going to vary. And this composition, as I told you in the beginning, is not going to be same. It is going to vary depending upon the kind of cells we have among the different kind of lipids that I discussed about. This is again a very, very important part. Here you can see the orientation of the lipid is going to be very, very important. For example, if you see the sphingomyelin, and this part, the purple region is showing the exoplasmic region, that is the exterior of the cell, and this bluish region showing the cytosolic region. So sphingomyelin, the most of the part you can see is lying towards outside, and the small part is going to be hanging inside. Same thing with the phosphatidylcholine. And if you see this one, the phosphatidylserine, it is mainly on the inner part, but they give a good evidences. If this is going to be reversed, cell is either cancerous or it is undergoing the apoptosis. So this is very good, the molecular marker, we can use it for the cells undergoing apoptosis. Now the phosphatidylethanolamine, again this part is largely biased toward the cytosolic region. Then the phosphatidylinositol, you can see over here, a little more towards the inner part than the outer part, because it is going to anchor many proteins on its surface. And if you see the cholesterol, it is almost similar on the either part of the cell membrane. And if you look at this, I was talking about in the beginning, this is your alcohol, this is a glycerol, and they have the ester bond with the first two carbons, where we have the long chain fatty acid R1 and R2, and third carbon is OH group is going to react with the phosphate, which is supplemented with the X. X can be anything. It could be the water, then it's going to be phosphatidic acid. If it is going to be ethanolamine, it could be the choline, it could be serine, it could be myoinositol. So it could be the glycerol. So this is how, or it can be the phosphatidyl So these are the component which is giving rise to different part of the lipid. And if you see carefully, so these regions, if you look at, I'll show in the next slide, that looks polar. See this is what going to happen over here. If you see this part, and you can see this part, so we can eventually make out the head region is going to be polar, and the other region, especially the tail region, is going to be non-polar, because they are having the long chain fatty acid. And one of the tail you have seen is showing the bend, because of they have the double bond into it. And these are list of the common biological fatty acid which is going to combine with the OH group. They make a ester bond with the OH group at the carbon number 1 and the carbon number 2. And this basically varies from the 12 to 24. They can be saturated, they can be unsaturated. But the important thing that we need to notice is that these bonds are going to be, if it is a double bond, they have a cis condition, not the trans one. This is again very, very important. There are the other lipids which are very important from the one cell to the other. One is the sphingomyelin, and most common sphingomyelin or the sphingolipid is going to be ceramides, and which is going to be either a phosphatidylcholine or phosphocholine or a phosphoethanolamine as a head group. So they are called as sphingolipid, because here the alcohol is going to be amino alcohol. Okay, although sphingomyelin differ chemically from the phosphatidylcholine and the phosphatidylethanolamine, their conformation and charge distribution are quite similar though. Then we have the another group, and basically they are found in more in the axonic region of the of the neurons. Cerebrocytes is the another ceramide, which are the head group that consists of the single sugar residue, and these lipids are therefore called as glycosphingolipids. That could be the galactose, or that could be the glucose. So these two are the groups are very much popular. And cerebrocytes, in contrast to the phospholipid, they do not have the phosphate group. So you have to be very clear about the cerebrocyte and the sphingomyelin. Then we have the gangliosides, and the most complex gangliosides, like they may have the many groups in the form of it could be glucose or it could be the galactose, and the number is going to be vary. So hence we call it the GM1 or GM2 or GM3. And in this structure, there's a one nana and still neuramic acid or sialic acid is going to be there, and this is going to make a big part of that. And especially the lipids which are found in the brain, they have a significant fraction, around 6% of the total lipid found in the brain lipid. And you can see, just make out the structure. This is the sphingosine, and this is going to be your ceramide. If you see this is sphingosine and ceramide, you can easily make out the differences. Now the lipid, they have the various way of moving. They can move in their own layer, and the two layers are called as monolayer. So they can have the lateral diffusion, they can move from one place to another one. Like these groups, they can move from here to here. Okay, so they can move around. You can see over here, they can move. And another way, they can flex their arms, the tails can be flexed, or they can rotate on their axis, or they can change their positioning as well. That is called a flip-flop movement, which is not very, very common. So membrane proteins called as the flipases, which helps in the flip-flop movement, especially when it is going against the concentration gradient. So this is the one, and this is going to be the facilitated diffusion. Sorry, it is not going to be the against the concentration gradient, it is towards the concentration gradient. Another membrane protein called the phospholipid translocases, which is using the ATP. This is going to be the active process, and this is going to be against the concentration gradient. Another structure which is in the lipid is going to be very, very common because of the long tail of the fatty acid in the cholesterol and some of the other lipid. They make a microdomain, and the thickness here you can see where is going to be more. This is called as a lipid wrap. Here we have the many proteins which temporarily will come into the picture, and they call it as a GPI anchor protein. And usually the two component is going to be involved over here. One is the sphingomyelin, another one is the cholesterol. So these two are going to form the basis, and this creates a temporary structure. It's not a permanent structure, it's a temporary structure which allows many protein to come over, and it is going to play a very important role at the different stages of the life, especially during the immune reaction or during the developmental process. They play a very important role. So they make a temporary or the transient phase for the signaling, where a lot of protein is going to be involved into that. This is the area of the research. Another kind of lipid which is found in both in the heart and the brain is called as a plasmalogens. It is different from the phospholipid. In the phospholipids, we have the ester bond. Here, in the case of plasmalogens, which are basically synthesized in the peroxisomes, they have the ether bond, and they just make around 20% of the total phosphoglyceride content in the human being use. And the long chain, and this plasmalogen is not being synthesized anywhere else except the peroxisome. Now, this is the basic structure. You can see the A, B, C, D different part. You can see over here. This is going to be glycolipid, and we have the the lipid head. You can see the tails are present over here. You can see the cholesterol structures are going to be there, and we have the proteins. So loosely bound protein, because the peripheral proteins, and the integral protein which is going to be embedded. Even it can span from the one side to the other. That is called a transmembrane protein. And there will be substitution of the carbohydrate moieties, which can make the glycolipid and the glycoproteins. This is another structure which can present here and there. There'll be two kind of the glycosylation that you see. One is going to be O glycosylation, another is going to be N glycosylation. N glycosylation is going to happen always on the asparagine residues, and the O glycosylation, because of the OH group, it is going to happen in the two amino acids, serine and the threonine. They're going to again play a very important role in the structure of the proteins. And these are the antigens which we see on the RBC surface. One is the O. O, we know the recessive character. They have the fucose, galactose, N-acetyl glucosamine, galactose, and glucose. This is the basic structure. And if you see, this galactose is going to be adding with the N-acetyl galactosamine. So we require specific enzyme that is going to make you the A antigen. So in the person with the blood group A will have this, and the person with the blood group O will have this, and the person with the blood group B, you can see the N-acetyl galactosamine is going to be replaced by the galactose. So there'll be difference in the enzymes which are required. In the blood group AB, both kind of antigens can be present because of the both the enzymes, galactose transferase and galactose N-acetyl glucosamine transferase will be present. Both the enzymes will be lacking over here. Now there'll be 4 different kind of pumps. Pumps are one which can pump the H plus ion from one side to the other. So one is a P class pump. P class pump will get open only once it gets phosphorylated. Hence the name is given P. Here the ATP is going to be hydrolyzed into the ADP. So few examples shown over here, like the proton pumps in the plants, fungi, and the bacteria. Plasma membrane of the higher eukaryotes, especially the sodium potassium ATPase pump. Apical plasma membrane, which is having the exchanger of the proton and the potassium pump. Then we have the calcium pump in the eukaryote, and in the sarcoplasmic reticulum, especially in the muscles, we have the calcium ion pump. This is the P class pump, which is signified by the putting a phosphate group over the structure. Then the second class of the pump we call the V class pump. V stand for the vacuolar. Here also the ATP is going to be hydrolyzed, but there will be no phosphorylation on the structure. So this is found in the lysosome, endosomes in the animal cell, and this is also found in the osteoclast and the kidney tubule cells. Then we have the F class of the protein. This is again very, very important protein because it is involved in the synthesis of the ATP. This is a kind of ATP synthase which can be present on the bacterial plasma membrane, or it could be the inner membrane of the mitochondria. Then we have the thylakoid membrane of the chloroplast. And another is the ABC superfamily. Here also you can see the ATP is being hydrolyzed. So this is the one pump which is involved in the many cases as the efflux pump. In the bacteria, many of the bacteria, they get resistant against the certain antibiotics. In that case, these pumps are quite active. They pump the antibiotics out of the bacterial cell. Then we have same pumps that are found in the mammalian plasma membrane. They do a similar kind of activity there as well. So glycolipid, another the component that we have not discussed too much. They also present on the one side or maybe the other side as well, and they play an important role as I told you before. Now that we have the proteins, I told you already where exactly they are present. They serve certain functions. The 6 functions assigned to them. One is the transport. They'll be involved in transporting the polar molecules. They can function as a receptor, for example, GPCR or maybe the other kind of receptors. They have the enzymatic role to play, for example, the adenylate cyclase or ATP synthase. They play important role in the cell recognition, for example, the lectins. They do play important role in the attachment like cadherin and all. Then they may play important role in the intracellular junctions between the epithelial cell. They can again play a very important role. Hopefully you understand what I told you today. It is going to help you quite a lot. So do watch, listen carefully. Hopefully you have done this, and subscribe my channel to get such more actions in the future as well. Thanks a lot.